think of the rural town of Dayton, Nevada, global tourist destination may not be a description that comes to mind. But it not only hosts travelers from all over the world, it's home to something truly unique.
And with just a few steps, you leave the United States and enter the Republic of Molossia.
The size of Molossia is roughly 1.3 acres and is home to 34 citizens, including dogs. And as with any nation, there must be a leader.
Your Excellency or Mr. President's fine.
This is the president of Molossia, Kevin Ba, or as he likes to be called, Your Excellency. Before he was a supreme leader, he was a U.S. citizen who hit the road traveling across the world, and at the end of that road, he decided to build his own micronation.
Well, a micronation is a tiny self-declared country. It is not recognized by the more established nations.
He came up with the idea in the 1980s after watching a movie, and it sounds like a fantasy to some people, but to him, it's the real thing.
We just like having fun with the idea of having our own country, and that's what we do here.
And he is serious about this. Molossia has all the marks of a modern nation, like its own post office.
Just every country needs to have a post office, and inside there you see Ralph the Postal Guy. And then up here is a collection of our stamps.
A bank.
Up here is actually examples of all of our money. Again, our money is called the Valora and is based in chocolate chip cookie dough, not in gold or silver.
And of course, no nation is complete without a tiki bar.
What would a country be without a bar?
And like traveling to any other country, you need to pass through customs. Molossians still pay taxes to the United States, which they classify as foreign aid. And who are these Molossians? They're members of the president's family. This includes his daughter, Alexis, who is the chief constable and runs the jail, and his wife, Adrienne, the first lady.
At the time, I was a preschool teacher, so I thought, oh my gosh, what a great idea, and can I come and can I wear a tiara? And he's like, that has nothing to do with being a first lady. And I said, I don't care. If we're making up our own thing and you have your own thing going on, then what rules really apply?
Both the president and the first lady say that even though they live in their own nation, what they're doing is distinctly Nevadan.
Nevada is all about self-expression. Nevada is such a unique place with so many unique people and unique personalities and locations and so forth like that.
And the micronation of Molossia has been here for 41 years, so what does the future of this nation look like?
Just growth, like regular nations, growth with people and projects, and what kind of things do we want to do next?
Well, I imagine that long after I'm gone, there will still be, I hope, there will still be a Molossia.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen. Before its doors were shut in 2012, the Nevada State Prison had a reputation for the unusual, from notorious criminals to unconventional executions. But the most unique part of its history happened when the casino floor met the prison yard.
Basically, it started when Nevada legalized gambling, and that was done by the legislature back in March of 1931.
Just like that, it was on a roll, a fully functioning casino at the Nevada State Prison.
Now, the thought of criminals gambling within a confined space may be an unsettling one, but believe it or not, the operation ran successfully from 1932 to 1967.
They had their card games, they had roulette, they had craps, they had their sports book, the conventional casino games that you would find downtown today.
Glenn Warden with the Prison Preservation Society says that the purpose of gaming in the prison was to keep the prisoners busy and out of trouble. Illegal gambling in prisons was always a sure bet, but introducing a regulated gaming hall was believed to be the best way to prevent more sinister forms of gambling.
That was some of the justification for it, but the reality is we were the only state in the United States that did that.
Where we're standing right now is where the old gaming hall used to be, correct?
That's right. It ran from here up to the cell house.
The games were all straight, cheating was discouraged, and no outside currency was allowed. And because there was no outside money allowed, they had to get creative.
They were given brass coins. They were not allowed regular currency because that could be used for escapes, it could be used for bribes, whatever.
These coins weren't just symbolic winnings and losings, they could be used as currency for inmates' day-to-day needs in the prison.
It was a physical presence in the game that you could bet take, win, lose.
Eventually, it all came to an end when a new warden decided to replace the gaming hall with more conventional recreation, but it's still considered a part of Nevada's rich gaming history.
It's part of the unique history of this institution that we're trying to preserve. You know, there's a couple of firsts here, and they're not necessarily what people would consider the positive kinds of things. A prison casino and the first use of lethal gas for an execution. There's a bit of history here.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen. The year was 1861, and in the midst of the Civil War, a man by the name of Orion Clemens was appointed by Abraham Lincoln to be the secretary to the governor of the Nevada Territory. And his brother Sam, hoping to get away from the heart of all the conflict, decided to join his brother for the ride out west.
Sam was kind of figuring, this war is going to be short. Why don't I go out and take a look at the West?
Historian Bob Stewart says when Sam first came out here, he began working in the mines around Virginia City, and, well, who better to help tell this story than Sam himself?
Well, I didn't have any luck prospecting, no. But I did one thing right. I was offered a job at the Territorial Enterprise. And Joe Goodman, the publisher, told me when I signed on, he said, Sam, you have but one responsibility here. Get your facts straight.
The Territorial Enterprise in Virginia City is one of the first published newspapers in Nevada's territory. They used large printing presses, type cases, and published frequently to an eager audience. And on the 2nd of February in 1863, Sam had written an article about a dream he had that featured a strange sense of satire. And at the bottom of the page,
he then signs the article, "Yours dreamily, Mark Twain."
And so the Southern man Samuel Clemens marched his way out to Nevada and eventually took on the name Mark Twain.
The name was inspired by his time maneuvering a Mississippi riverboat, and the phrase Mark Twain was used to show the depth of a river. He then continued to use that pseudonym in his writings, from Nevada legislature to published novels.
So we never let the truth stand in the way of a good story back then.
The most notable story when it comes to Knowing Nevada is his novel, Roughing It.
Roughing It is a good tale of early Nevada and the territory.
Oh, it's all about Lake Tahoe and Nevada and the West. I think you'll like it. I hope so.
Twain's time here was not long, and by the time the state's constitution became ratified, Samuel Clemens eventually said it was time to return to a more rural lifestyle to focus on writing, until the end of the 19th century.
And when I said goodbye to Virginia City and Lake Tahoe, Carson City, I knew I was saying goodbye to the most vigorous enjoyment of life I would ever be afforded.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen. If you're like most people, California, Italy, or France are usually the first places you think of when it comes to the world's best wine. Because Nevada stands in Napa's shadow, not many people realize we have an ideal climate to grow and make wine.
Nevada is a pretty decent place to grow grapes because we have an abundance of sunshine and degree growing days.
Wade Johnston and his partner Joe Bernardo are winemakers here in northern Nevada. These two run the Basin and Range Winery in Gardnerville, where they plant, grow, and harvest a variety of grapes in their vineyard.
I would say it's very hands-on here, but I spent a lot of time there.
This wasn't always the case. Making and distributing wine was illegal in Washoe and Clark counties until 2015. A current law was amended to allow any county in the state to produce and distribute wine, which Joe says is a good thing because of the desert climate.
So by doing that, you actually get a grape that likes it better here than it would in California or somewhere else.
These vines aren't as mature as some wine experts would like, and you'll find more than a few sommeliers raising their eyebrows at the idea of a Nevada vineyard producing a quality wine. But Wade and Joe feel otherwise.
Most of the wines that people know, like Merlot, Chardonnay, Sauv Blanc, all that comes from Vitis vinifera parentage is what the species is called. And these are combinations between that and stuff that's native to the Americas. And so they're just a little bit happier here, a little bit lower maintenance and more fit for this environment.
And in the late fall months, they take these grapes, harvest them here, and take them up north to process them in Reno.
And here at the wineries on 4th Street, the hard work of wine moves from the field into fermentation.
White or red, it all gets destemmed immediately, crushed and destemmed.
And in our state's dry climate, it's prime real estate for fermenting and storing barrels of nature's nectar.
It's a little bit better environment to be storing things in. You don't want to be storing finished wine, cased wine, in an overly damp or humid environment.
And once the grapes have settled in and sat for a while, it's finally time to enjoy the fruit of all that labor. Like most things in Nevada, the final product is the perfect blend with notes of the past, present, and future on the palate.
It's a fruit-forward wine. I would describe it as being fruit-forward, but it's got a lot of acid on it too. Like it's not like a lot of wines from California will just be like completely fruit driven and they'll be like single dimensional wines.
Winemakers across the state now are able to share a passion that is Nevada born and Nevada raised, all the way back to its roots.
Everybody that works out here is from Nevada. We live here in Nevada in Reno. Like I said, it's the only winery that uses all Nevada fruit, and we farm it all ourselves.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles. When you pass through Washoe Valley on Old 395, you may have asked yourself what this home is doing on the side of the road and in the middle of a park.
Parks really encapsulate a lot of the history of the state.
And that history takes us back to the glory days of the Comstock. Lemuel Sandy Bowers drove his freight wagon from Illinois to the Nevada Territory in search of gold and silver. Sandy began quickly investing in mining claims, and as luck would have it, he struck silver in the hills of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
The Bowers, they weren't your normal rich people, because they were poor people who suddenly became rich.
The Bowers soon found new and lavish ways to spend this fortune, with the family getting a huge return on their investments into 5 different mining claims. They built the Bowers Mansion in 1863.
A lot of the people that made their money on the Comstock lode, they kind of built their mansions over in San Francisco, but Eiley and Sandy Bowers, they decided to spend their money here, and so this is a very unique piece of Nevada history.
The Bowers Mansion is one of the few remaining mansions from the Comstock era. Their home features donations from a local women's historical society that includes original crafted furniture, doorknobs made of gold and silver from the mine itself, art pieces, and lavish furnishings.
The ladies kept really good records, so we know pretty much everything where it came from. The locals are so proud of this place, and it's nice when people come through and can see things that their family has given.
The Nevada Territory had a fairy tale beginning in its heyday, but the Washoe miners' glory could not last forever. The mines ran thin, and the family struggled to survive. Eventually, this led to Sandy Bowers' passing. His wife, Eiley, decided to keep her late husband's memory alive by going back to her boarding house roots and opening up the property to the public. Once she passed on, it was closed for a number of years, but was then reopened in 1946.
She opens this as a resort. And so that was the early days of picnics and swimming out here. She had the beautiful grounds. She had 2 swimming ponds for everyone's enjoyment. It was close enough to the lake so people could even go fishing while they were out here.
The women who maintain this property, tucked on the hillside north of Carson, want to make sure this gem of the Comstock remains standing.
Generations come out to visit the mansion again, and all these stories of people, generation after generation.
Much like today, people have relocated to Nevada because of the new gold mine of tech companies, but Washoe County maintains this shimmer of history to remember where we came from.
This home has always been open and welcome to Nevadans.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen. The sights and the sounds of a Wolfpack game can be recognized across northern Nevada, but there was a period of time when we weren't always the Wolfpack.
The first campus was actually located in Elko, Nevada, and there's a lot of sagebrush between here and Elko, so we picked up the name the Sagebrushers.
Amy Huntsaker with the university's library has done countless research on Wolfpack athletics. She says when the University of Nevada, Reno became a school back in 1874, it did not have many sports teams.
The first winning team in Nevada was our women's basketball team, the first win of the Wolfpack, I suppose, except at that point they were called the Sage Hens. That's what they called their female team.
After that first win, the Ivy League schools in California started adding more teams to their athletic departments, so the University of Nevada followed suit. But the name Sagebrushers didn't fit the fierceness of the sports teams.
We became the Wolfpack in 1922. The editor of the Sagebrush, which is the student magazine, the Nevada Sagebrush, decided that the Sagebrushers, the Sage Hens, all of those sage names were not appropriate for the fierceness of our sports teams because we were competitive. So they had a competition for the best name that would represent the school.
Students were excited about a new name, but unfortunately, the editor of the Sagebrush newspaper, Leslie Bruce, died in an unexpected accident before a name was chosen.
They rallied around this deceased student and, chose this name partly in honor of him.
But why, of all the creatures in the animal kingdom, did they choose wolves?
Now, we do not have wolves in Nevada, but the student population felt like wolves embodied the spirit of Nevada. Originally, they tried to have live mascots. Our first mascot was Willie the Wolf, who was actually a coyote puppy.
Over time, the live wolves were a safety hazard, and in the 1950s, students began donning the wolf pack costumes.
They would use carpet, as their fur. This kind of evolved in the 1970s. We see a wolf, and they started calling these human wolves Wolfie.
These mascots are just a reminder to students, faculty, and fans that the almost 100-year-old competitive spirit lives on.
It's true, we are a family, we work together, we support each other, and yet we are a force to be reckoned with.
For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen. If you consider yourself a fan of Western history, then the phrase E Clampus Vitus may play a bigger role in your life than you would expect.
If you're out anywhere in the West and you see plaques from E Clampus Vitus, when you see us, talk to us about those plaques. Like, we love those plaques, they're a part of who we are, and we'd like to tell you more.
This odd group of men who dress up in red shirts, leather vests, and who are known to gather in local hangouts have an influence on preserving history.
It started in West Virginia in the 1800s, moved out west with the gold rush, and we currently have 49 chapters all over the western United States, and more growing every day.
The Clampers, as they are called, have been in Nevada for over 150 years. The group began in the mid-1800s and was created to burlesque some of the more modest secret societies, such as the Freemasons or the Oddfellows.
Clampers would take the bottoms of their beer cans and pin it to their shirt and, have a whole vest full of that, and they'd walk down the main street and they're like, yeah, I got pins too,
The fraternity members want to ensure the forgotten pieces of history are well kept through a sense of humor. That's why Bryce here wanted us to interview him on the toilet.
Well, thank you very much. So we just love being ourselves, and it just happens to be that dressing up in a cool hat and putting pins on our vests and things like that is just a fun thing that comes along, the perks of the job, I sort of say.
The evidence of their work can be seen on plaques around Nevada that end with E. Clampus Vitus.
Nevada has so much history that often gets overlooked. Like, we've all been to these little ghost towns where all it is some ruins in the desert, and there's no marker or anything for it, and as time goes on, those sites just disappear, and without plaques and monuments like we put up, then they're just kind of lost to the history books.
And within those books, historians note that they wear absurdity like a badge of honor. Many of the group's leaders have different reasons why they joined this camaraderie.
Be a part of a brotherhood, a lot of friends, a lot of family.
A love for history, a love for community, and a love to have fun.
The future will always be the history. Without the history, the future's lost.
Although they may look bizarre, the men who make up the Clampers take history seriously. So when you notice their famous motto etched on the bottom of a plaque, you can thank a Clamper for saving that piece of history. For Knowing Nevada, I'm Miles Bergen.